This is the Toplofty Lounge. We're in for a smooth show for you today. Oh yeah, baby. In 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, baby. Yeah, here we go. In 11, 10, 9. Oh yeah, baby. Here we come. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Toplofty Lounge, episode 37, Conversations for the Elevated. Welcome to all my fellow snobs. This week on the Toplofty Lounge, we're going to talk about the 6 science fiction novels you need to be a science fiction snob. These are the key novels, the key science fictions, and well, as we talk about them, we'll talk about why they're key, why they're important. All right, but before we get to that, let me introduce my co-host, the Johnny Rico to my Sergeant Zim, the Julia to my Winston Smith, the John to my Bernard Max. It's Cam. Say hello, Cam.
37? Some people might get that joke.
37. I don't get it.
Okay, that's all
right.
right.
Say hello.
Hi, everybody.
All right, there you go. All right. So, Cam, how was while we wait, let me say hello to everybody in the chat. I see 7 of you so far. Weatherman, DP is in there. Who else? Gojira, welcome. Everyone else must be lurking. Neutron's there. He's snuck in just as I was talking. All right. Well, welcome. Thanks. Appreciate you all. Just let me say the channel's doing pretty well. The Babylon 5 stuff, and we're getting a little more audience. We're up to 539 subscribers, which is great.
10 more. That's 10 this week.
Something like that. And I will say that the last our Wednesday show, the Babylon 5 one, has the most views out of any show that we've done so far. But someone disliked it. I'm surprised.
Really?
Yeah, it's got a dislike. But everything else, most other things are 100%.
I wonder if it's some of my my haters.
Probably some of your haters. Yeah, it's got the most views of any of our shows, even ones that we did like a year, months ago. But that's great. We appreciate that, and we appreciate you guys coming in and subbing and all that stuff. We're providing good content for you guys to enjoy. Yeah, for you. Yeah, it's content for the elevated. I mean, those other people they're just peasants. They can't appreciate this good content. But
right.
But our viewers can. They are sophisticated.
Yeah, exactly. But you should probably give a disclaimer and let everyone know that I have no association with your channel other than being the co-host. It's your channel exclusively, and because I'm not popular with some people. So
you aren't? Oh no. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, just let's add the disclaimer that Cam has. What is the disclaimer?
Well, this is your channel, and I
is
am
my channel.
I in no way reflect on your channel other than I say, meaning that I'm only representing myself is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, of course, yes. I think we're all mature enough to understand that we are our own people, and just because Cam likes these horrible things that no one else likes, it doesn't mean that the show's not any good or anything, right?
Well, I mean, our loyal listeners probably don't have a problem, but if I were to, post this on the Twitters right now, I don't know, I might bring in some weirdo, because I argue with people a lot.
Look, everyone in the chat is full of people who like Cam. There you go. See, it's not so.
Well, these are our friends, from
yes, our loyal viewers.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
And I appreciate all of you.
We appreciate, yes, we appreciate all of you, everybody. It's a lot better than talking to ourselves. Okay, so let me let's bring up the birds. Let's see what the birds are up to while you Cam tells us about his. How was your day, Cam? Did you watch the sports ball competition, the big one that was on today?
Yeah, till the very end. I was invited to a gathering, in where the Super Bowl was viewed. I wouldn't choose to view it myself because I don't give a crap about the NFL.
So wait, you're saying that you have friends and you went to like a gathering with these friends? Is that what you're telling us?
Yes.
Cam has friends. See, guys, come on. I told you.
Right.
Oh, go on. Let's
well, it was a blowout. The Chiefs got absolutely obliterated by Philadelphia Eagles. If people, this is the first game I've watched all year, and again, just because yeah, exactly, Dave. Yeah, yes, good point. But the Chiefs were kind of they won the last 2 years, so they're a hot team, and they're not a bad team by any means in general, but they sure suck today. If you just look at the score, it doesn't look like that much of a blowout, but it was. It was. I mean, the first half, the Chiefs scored nothing. I mean, it was just turnovers after turnovers, and it was a extremely poor performance. So.
Okay, but look, myself and Gojira really want to know. What about Taylor Swift? Was she there? Did she get
yes,
proposed to? Did they break up? What happened? I mean, that's what we really want to know.
I missed this part of it, but I'm told that she was booed.
Oh, great. Right on.
So, and President Trump was there as well, apparently.
Really?
Yes, and he was. Again, I didn't see that part either, but apparently he was cheered. So,
of course, yes. I had a discussion with
that's
this.
right, Gojira.
Yeah. I had a discussion with my daughter about this just before, a couple hours ago. We were just talking about, the whole Taylor Swift thing in football and like what. I mean, I don't understand the whole marketing aspect of this. Who sits there and goes, you know what we need? You know what we need in American football? We don't have enough of the 12 to 14-year-old girls watching and loving football. How do we get them in there? I know. Let's make this fake thing where Taylor Swift is dating some football player and then she shows up in all the games and blah, blah, blah. We'll make some, have a storyline with some, soap opera type elements. Will they get together or not? Blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, what the hell?
I heard a lot more about it last year. It was like, I guess
it was a little more
dating last year or something, and it was a big thing. And of course,
they're not dating. So. Come on.
Well, I could give a crap if they were or aren't. I mean, but you're right. Is this just some kind of I don't know, and I don't care. This is this level of entertainment. The NFL is entertainment, when it comes down to it. And it's not for me. But I mean, I know a lot of people love football, and that's fine. I used to follow football, somewhat closely, but that's been many years ago. But what it is today, I don't give a crap. This whole kneeling for the national anthem thing, and there, all this other stuff that gets into political garbage. No, I don't want that out of my entertainment. Period. If you have a personal thing you believe in, whatever, I don't care about that either. But it's just not. The NFL can go to hell as far as I'm concerned.
All right, right on. Okay, yeah. So, all right. I guess we're ready to move on to. Do you have a? Right. We have. Okay, so it's been requesting. What's this? Neutron. Okay. Well, he was just yelling at me before the game, or before the show started. About he was on a big rant, and that's why we started late.
Don't say what it's about.
He was busy. He was busy ranting. Yeah. So, before we get in, listen, because of we've had requests, constant requests for, and usually by Death Angel Shadow. He's not here. For Cam and his tool time stuff. So we've decided it's going to be a segment, and we're going to call it. Cam, do you want to talk about it? It's your thing. So
No, you should talk it up. You're the
Me?
host
All
here.
right.
I'm yeah.
Okay, so it's going to be called Cam's Toolbox. Cam picked the name. And so every so often, not necessarily every show, but whenever Cam has something tool related that he wants to talk about, we're going to put it on the show. And it'll be, 2 to 5 minutes, that kind of thing. Maybe sometimes at the beginning, sometimes at the end of the show. We'll see where it fits in. We'll play with it a little bit. And, if anybody has if you want to request a tool review or something like that, you know, ask Cam about some tool you want him to talk about it. Put it in the comments of the show, and then hopefully next show we'll get into it. I read all the comments, and Cam, you pretty much read all the comments too. I think you said
Mhm.
that to me. Yeah, pretty much. We both go through the comments, so yeah, we'll get them. So let's do Cam's toolbox for today. I'll have to get some sort of intro or some sort of fancy graphics or something. I'll work on that. Yeah, you got something. You don't have a tool today, but you got an anecdote or something.
Well, yeah, well, let me first just say that there are many interesting tool channels out there that you could watch if you want to learn specifics about tools and things. And I am not a professional tool user. I'm just a fan of utility items and things like that, which we've talked about on the show occasionally. So again, I don't want to act like I'm portraying myself as an expert, but there are a few things that occur to me. One of the things this weekend is I was helping someone install. Uh, they have a new Jeep and a Jeep Wrangler. And if anyone is familiar with modern Jeep Wranglers, the door, because doors are removable on Wranglers. It's a big feature that a lot of people like and everything. So they're the doors, where a lot of cars have cup holders and other things in them. Jeep Wranglers don't. They have like this net. Uh, and it's kind of poor storage, but there are some Jeeps are famous for having aftermarket parts and things. People customize them and do all kinds of stuff. So there was it was like a cage you can put onto the door, that is more like what you would find in other cars. So I was helping them install this, and this thing was a pain in the butt to get put together. um, and install, because again, it's not really meant for there. And I, this it occurs to me that even these small jobs require a relatively large number of tools. Coach Jerry, yes, tool tinkerer, and Dave, yeah, just average guy that has use for fixing things occasionally. I guess you'd say I'm a DIYer, and on light stuff, home repair, things like that. And or I was like, a while back, I was working on a bike, an electric bike, just doing a few little things, and it's amazing how many tools and how many different tools you need to do a job efficiently. Can you get by with something? It's like with a handful of tools, yeah. And it is one of these things. It's like the more expertise you have and experience, probably the less tools you need. So um, but in this case, it's just a matter of reach. It's like, okay, there's this order that you have to go through because of the way the whole thing's arranged to get it connected, and it's very tight spaces in kind of a deep hole to get a fastener in. And you can't get your fingers in there and all these different things. So it's like I had to go relatively deep into my tools to find one that would work for this. And the reason I'm bringing up this anecdote is. Uh, some with your child labor. Yes, if I had a child around, with tiny fingers could fit in there. Maybe I could have got that to work a little better. Um,
See,
but
children are useful.
yeah, um, if so again, watching these different tool channels and things, there are various channels that are dedicated. They just basically every day they just go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever your local chain is, and go through, oh, these things are on sale, da, 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 da. And I've talked in recent weeks about picking up these tools and that. And so a good thing for people to do if you just want to have some basic utility around is to check those kinds of things out. I mean, if you go to your local home store, a lot of times they will have some basic tools for very cheap, and you can get a few things for a relatively small amount of money. And over time, you kind of build up a range of things because, and again, tying this all back together, even a relatively simple job can sometimes be made much easier if you do have a little bit of depth in your tools. So,
Right.
there you go.
So you can check out these various other tool sites. Don't go now. Don't leave this. Don't leave our show. Don't
Mhm.
go now.
Well,
Wait till afterwards. Wait till we're
yeah,
done, and then go. And I think that
I will.
DP has the perfect. Yeah. Oh, well, no. Well, first, before that, I don't understand why anyone would want to take off the door in your car. I mean, the snow out there. You get snow in your car and stuff.
Well,
It's
some
crazy.
places around the country have warmer weather sometimes.
Snow everywhere, man. Wait till the spring or something. And this thing, I think, DP has the perfect tagline. Just an average guy trying to get the job done. I think that's what maybe the tagline will be for Cam's toolbox. It's not
Yes.
bad.
Thank you.
I'll workshop it a little bit and figure it out.
I will put a few links to a few good channels that you could check out again after the show.
Yeah, don't go now. Wait till the show's over. All right.
So, but if anybody's like, hey, what tools do you like? What's what's a good place to start or whatever? I'd be happy to answer your questions to hopefully get you started.
All right. Okay, let's get into the main topic for today. So the 6 science fiction novels that you need to be a science fiction snob. All right, so these are ones that I've picked out myself, but I don't think anyone can disagree with them, to be honest. And if they do, they're wrong because I'm the science fiction snob, so I know. But these 6 novels are key to science fiction. I mean, everyone has probably heard about these novels. Maybe some of the less known ones, but there are certain of these that have you have heard of for sure. If you've read any science fiction, if you exist in this world, you've come across some of these novels or reference to some of these novels, and that's why they're important. The vast majority of these novels are breaking ground in some way. They've got tons of awards by science fiction peers, and some of them have, as we get down the list, they have invaded the public consciousness, and you know about these things even if you hate science fiction and don't know anything about it. And we'll get to them. So I'd put them in a random order. It's no particular order. It's kind of roughly based on how important I think they are, but I didn't spend a lot of time doing that. I just sort of threw them together. Okay, so Cam, you've read some of these novels. If you've I don't think you've read this one, the first one, but yeah, if you want to jump in at any time and say something about novels,
Sure.
I'm just gonna go through. I don't know if I'm gonna go through the whole story. I'll give maybe a quick synopsis of the plot or what the book is about. And we'll talk more about why it's important and why you should read it. Okay, so the first novel is Rendezvous with Rama. So Arthur C. Clarke, written in 1973. I think this is like the latest. All of them are written before then. I think this is like the newest model. So real quick, it's a story. An asteroid strikes Italy in 2077. The world sets up a space guard system to protect itself from potentially hazardous objects. And in 2131, this space guard detects an interstellar object entering the solar system, and it's designated. They name it after their god Rama, a Hindu god. A space probe reveals that Rama is a perfectly smooth cylinder, 50 kilometers long and 20 kilometers wide. I didn't know aliens used kilometers. But and then they sent. The story is about a spacecraft, this Endeavour, which happens to be nearest to this object. It's sent there, and our intrepid explorers go through the airlock, and they explore this object, which actually is inside. It's basically an ark. Inside, it's set up. It's got a body of water, which is frozen at the time. It's got these various planes. It's like a Noah's Ark for something. They go through a bit of an adventure there, and then eventually the object starts to leave the system, and they get off the object. So I'm not going to go in much more details about the story. I mean, you should read the story yourself. There's a lot of, it's interesting, but it's one of the first stories. The reason it's important is first of all, it's Arthur C. Clarke, who is one of the big three, or the ABCs of science fiction. So the big three usually are considered to be Asimov, Clarke, and Heinlein. And you also see someone say the ABCs of science fiction, which is Asimov, Bradbury, and Clarke. So I think Heinlein gets a little bit, gets a little screwed in that one. But these are the guys who, were very famous and wrote books in the 40s and the 50s. They are the bedrock of science fiction, which is another reason why they're sort of required reading for any science fiction snob. So that's roughly the story. Clarke won Hugo and Nebula awards for this book back when those awards actually meant something. They were out for good, for something. They weren't just given away because you checked certain racial or gender boxes or whatever. So so that's the story. That's the main reason. It's the first kind of story about a ship coming into the solar system, and it's got, it's very descriptive on the insides, how that works. They're going through the adventure of exploring that with, more of a hard science fiction feel to it. So that, and I mean, this is kind of came out at the same time as, if anybody's read any Ringworld, Larry Niven, which is kind of that same sort of aspect, except of course with a ring world as opposed to a ship that's going through space. But yeah, that's the key reason why this is an important book series, because of who wrote it and when it was written, and what it talked about. There's 4 books in the series, but Gentry Lee wrote the other 3 books after this one, with Clarke as editing and making suggestions and stuff like that. But so 4 books in the series. I don't think you read. Have you read this one, Cam?
No.
I haven't read this one. Okay, so you don't really have any comments.
No, I'm afraid not.
No, but that's the basic story of it. To me, this is the weakest of the ones on the list, but I think it needs to be included because Arthur C. Clarke is such a big, he's not as big as Asimov or Heinlein, but he is pretty big, and he was, on the bottom floor of the golden age of science fiction. Okay. Anybody got any? If you have any questions in the chat, just throw them in there. Throw them in. Don't let me get talking all the time.
Don't be shy.
Yeah. Okay. So next one is 1984, which is sometimes written as 1984 or the words 1984. Written in 1948 by George Orwell. It is a quick synopsis of the story. It takes place in some sort of future. Supposedly it's 1984, but that's never said. The world has been divided into 3 super states, and the one that we're in is Oceania, which is a totalitarian super state, which is led by Big Brother, a dictatorial leader, supported by an intense cult of personality, and manufactured by the party's thought police. The party is an omnipresent and surveils everyone through the Ministry of Truth, and everyone is subjected to constant propaganda. The story focuses around Winston Smith, a diligent mid-level worker at the Ministry of Truth, which of course deals in lies, and he secretly hates the party and dreams of rebellion. He keeps a forbidden diary. He has an illegal relationship with his colleague Julia, and they learn about a shadowy resistance group called the Brotherhood, and they try to contact them, but of course the Brotherhood turns out to be a party agent, and they're arrested and subject to months of psychological manipulation and torture by the Ministry of Love. Ministry of Love tortures you, and once they betray each other, they can be released.
Yeah, I did read this book. And we discussed it a bit in our dystopian episode.
Yes.
I don't like it. To be honest with you, it's not
like
a fun read.
No,
it's an extremely important read, and as Gojira notes, we're all experiencing it. It seems, unfortunately.
Yeah, you have to. I mean, we read this. I read this book in high school. It was part of the reading. You have to. I mean, anyone in a Western society in freedom should read this book simply as a warning. Also, Animal Farm too. If you, Animal Farm even better.
Yeah, quick note: Animal Farm is much more approachable.
It is. And actually, I was trying to get my kids to read 1984 and Animal Farm. They wouldn't do it, and I found at the library of all places, I found a graphic novel of Animal Farm, and I took it and read it and looked at it. It's exactly the same as the book, just like super easy to read. It's great for kids. So get your 10 and 12-year-olds reading that to learn about how evil the government is. So the thing about 1984, it is the classic literary example of political dystopian fiction. I mean, it is everywhere. Everyone has heard of. I mean, there is a TV show called Big Brother on network television that has been on for 20 years now or something, where we all watch these people every aspect of their lives. That's where Big Brother, that's where the show name comes from. The whole idea of this perpetual war, which some people would, say that the war on terror was an aspect of that. Thought police, who hasn't heard that referred to, the, Ministry of Truth, Love, and the opposites. Those have been jokingly referred to. If you've ever heard, if you've ever heard someone say thought crime, Jason always goes, his 4 lights thing on his program. That's a variation of the whole 2 + 2 = 5. Double think. Who hasn't heard of the word Orwellian? Oh, that's a very Orwellian thing to say. And my favorite, maybe not favorite, but a very important aspect of the book is at the end of the book is the Newspeak Dictionary. And it talks about how you use language to, to control people's way of thinking by removing words, and so they can only say things are either good or bad. We even see some, double think or newspeak in our language all the time, where you, I mean, I don't want to get too political, but let's say that people changing the names of things, like if someone is, an illegal alien into your country, calling that an undocumented migrant. I mean, these are all classic pieces taken right from Orwell, where you change the wordings of things to make the thing seem less, less nasty or whatever. Classic. I mean, everybody in Western society should have read 1984, to be honest. Cam, go ahead.
Well, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I agree. It is one of these things that's aside from what I think Gojira was meaning to say. It has worked its way into popular culture, so people are aware of it. Well, they talk about it, whether or not they're actually aware of the exact story and what it means and everything like that, and the background of it, which most people probably aren't. But
most people probably haven't read the book, but they know of it, and and whenever you want to refer to something that is, that's dystopian or totalitarianist or whatever, this usually a reference to this book. Everyone should have.
Oddly enough, being so ubiquitous and well known, people apparently didn't take away the lesson of it at all. As we've
Yeah.
seen, last several years with the Wu flu and other such things. Ironically, the fact that I'm still not sure if we can talk about the pandemic, the name of the pandemic, without your channel getting dinged today, years later.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about Big Brother, again, we're living in so many ways.
Yeah.
Shocking. It is truly shocking if you start to really think about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a fun book. And for those who haven't read it, the ending of the book is, Winston betrays Julie. He's released, but he only when he finally realizes, like, he truly believes that he loves Big Brother, do they kill him. Right? They actually keep him alive, like they let him live until he actually. Oh, now you actually really believe. Okay, now we can execute you, and he's happy to be. Yeah, it's pretty disturbing. There's a film that was released. I think it was released in 1984, or around that time, with John Hurt, Susan Hamilton, Richard Burton. The film was, I think it's a fairly good representation of the book. It's pretty dark. Everything's in in black.
Yeah,
Not
it's
quite
outright
dark.
depressing to watch that movie. It's
And I think Richard Burton died like near the end of the making of the film, which kind of makes it a little, it's a little choppy, because I think he died. One of the actors, I think it was Richard Burton, died. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up. Yeah. Everyone should know and read 1985. It's the dystopian totalitarianist novel. Yeah. Okay. Let's move along to Fahrenheit. Fahrenheit 451. Called that because, you know why, Cam?
because that's the temperature in freedom height in which paper ignites.
Yeah. Well, actually, I mean, it ignites. Depends on the paper, but between 420 and 5 and 475 or whatever.
Oh, and you want to get technical about it now? I'm giving you the general answer, and you go, oh well, let's
Well,
actually,
actually,
yeah, right,
it's
okay.
451.2.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. That's why. This book was written. Ray Bradbury. This is kind of the only real science fiction novel he wrote, which is why it's kind of, he's kept in this thing, but he's kind of on the edge of it there. But he wrote the book. It was kind of a comment on the McCarthy era, book burnings in Nazi Germany, ideological repression in the Soviet Union. Okay, so written in 1953, dystopian novel. So that's why those were the reasons why he wrote it. Let me go here. It presents in a future American society where books have been outlawed and firemen burn any books that are found. It follows the viewpoint of Guy Montang, fireman who becomes disillusioned with his role of censoring literature and destroying it, and eventually commits himself to preservation of literary and cultural writings. It's not a bad story. It goes through various the character Rendezvous. One of the things about Rendezvous with Rama is that Clark is criticized because he doesn't do much character development. It's kind of, the characters are kind of flat. This is not like that. It's a good read. There's a good storyline with it. He basically, I summed up the storyline. I don't think I want to get too much into the details of the story. It's a pretty good story, but I'm going to mention this one part of it because it kind of encapsulates, where we're going as a society, and those kind of aspects, that cautionary aspect of it. First of all, Montag's wife, he tries to engage his wife in discussion, like after he's he kind of realizes, hey, these people, we're all kind of shallow, and we don't read. Nobody has any things. They talk about the okay, hold on. What do they call it again? They talk about the what's it called? They have a different name for television. The wall something. I'll find it. Anyway, sorry, the parlor wall. That's what it's called. So they have a giant entertainment living room, basically a television that fills the entire wall. Sound familiar? They call it the parlor wall. And his wife just sort of spends her entire time there, watching the parlor wall, basically watching television. He realizes how he has, in one part of the book, he has some they have another couple come over, and instead of all sitting there and watching the parlor wall, he tries to engage them in conversation, and he realizes they have absolutely there's no depth to his wife or their friends at all. They're just very shallow, and they don't, because nobody reads. There's a very interesting aspect here where part of the story of Montag, he's been stealing books and hiding them. From when he goes to burn a book, he'll take one and put it in his jacket or whatever, and then he's sort of built up his own little library of books. But his boss, the chief fireman, tells the story of how they got to where they are, how they got to this place where firemen are burning books instead of putting out fires. Okay, so I'll just read this aspect. The chief recounts the history of how books have lost their value and how firemen were adapted from their current role. Over decades, people began to embrace new media like film and television, sports, and an ever-quickening pace of life. Books were abridged or degraded to accommodate shorter attention spans. At the same time, advances in technology resulted in nearly all buildings being made with fireproof materials. Firemen were no longer necessary. The government then instead turned firemen into officers of society's peace of mind. Instead of putting out fires, they were charged with starting them, specifically to burn books, which were condemned as a source of confusing and depressing thoughts that complicated people's lives.
That sounds strikingly familiar in a lot of ways.
And it's interesting because in all these dystopias that we're talking about, there'll always be some way that we need to, keep the masses placated. Like, don't give them books, give them drugs, whatever it is, feed them with propaganda, whatever it is to keep them placated.
Well,
so,
this was okay. I got to tell you, this was a book that I had built up in my head. It was one of those things. It's like, oh, Fahrenheit 451. I heard, a good amount about it before I read it, and I was a middle-aged teenager, middle teenager, I think, when I picked it up and read it, and I was kind of like, I was a little disappointed. It was kind of drier than I'd hoped it would be, or imagined it would be. But it is a good read. So, again, looking at it from my perspective now, I certainly still recommend it. But it did kind of let me down a little bit. I did finish it, of course. But a few things, I'll just share a brief recollection. One of the other things kind of related to what you're saying. It was very near the beginning of the book. I think they were talking about how billboards were just incredibly long because people were driving so fast or whatever, and it was kind of, again, building this setting up. You mentioned other bits of it, and this short attention span and the way that people are at that point. Meaning it was long because they're driving so fast to be able to see any of it. It was basically distorted in that way, and that kind of did put me on the right track, because it was just a very effective tool to be like, oh, okay, yeah, and how society can warp, physically in this case, to adapt to these things and the consequences of it, so
yeah.
But
welcome PBR.
Yeah, hey.
This novel was written in 1953, and you listen to what it's saying about mass media and shortening of attention spans, and just look around, right? Like, you don't have to. Like, you'd swear that some of these authors are fellow time travelers like myself from the future, and coming back and hey, by the way, yeah. So Fahrenheit 451, very often taught as at least when I was in high school, taught as a novel in English classes in high school. That's probably where people of our vintage, first came across it. There is, I think there's 2 movies out for this one. There's an older 70s. I don't know if it's the 70s, somewhere in the 20th century. And there's also a newer one that was 2018 or something like that. I haven't seen either of them.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I've been meaning to see I have the 2018 one. Meaning to watch it, updated version. I'm not sure how closely it follows the book or anything like that. Yeah. Any other comments about the book?
Well, just again, I just remember the thing about the firemen. And again, the firemen being, the people who started fires. That was kind of a stark thing, very effective thing.
Yeah.
That's memorable.
Yeah, it's right at the beginning of the book, right? Where you're going, oh, the firemen's coming. Oh, the firemen are coming. And then
Right.
Then they burn the house down. You're like, whoa.
And remember, he is always playing with his lighter and stuff. And I think they talked about how they all have like dark hair and like they smell like smoke and everything. It's like, there was this real, like I said, kind of memorable way of building the world around it. So I did enjoy that.
That aspect. So, do you remember how the books? Should I spoil the book? The ending of the book?
Sure.
So, the hero escapes at the very last minute because they come, they go to his house to burn his stuff. They're like, hey, your wife turned you in. We're going to go to your house to burn your house down. And his boss, the fire chief, that's when they have that interaction where I read, tells him to burn it down. And then he burns his own house down, but then he turns it on the fire chief and runs away. And coincidentally, at this time, there's been a heightening towards war between, America and, unknown enemies or whatever. And as he escapes, they see bombers coming across, and the city where he leaves is nuked. And he meets up with the other rebels, and they go back to rebuild society after everybody is dead and the government's destroyed, everything ceased to exist.
Right.
So that's how the book ends. All right, let's move on.
Yeah.
Something a little, well, all these things are kind of depressing a little bit, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Okay, so the next.
Well, just one.
Oh, okay.
Very briefly. Well, why? Because pretty much the most memorable sci-fis are all dystopian, right? I mean, we that's why we covered a lot of this on the dystopian episodes. Dystopian in some way, at least.
Yeah. So, I mean, they have to affect. I mean, they don't have. I mean, dystopians are ways of getting. They don't have to be dystopian, but they have to, affect the body, the social body, and get into people's minds. So I didn't kind of go over that. So Ray Bradbury, I mean, it's obvious why this is, it's a big issue. It talks about censorship, and those people who weren't. I mean, there was still book burning going on when I was growing up. Like there would be talk about it, and people would say, "Hey, that's wrong." But they say, "Oh, this book is evil. Let's burn it," And that was still being done occasionally in the 60s, 70s. Even we talked about the. I think I've talked offline. The Satanic Panic, right, Cam? Like you talk about burning Dungeons and Dragons books and that kind of stuff. All these things are getting rid of them. So I'll just mention that Ray Bradbury. There was he was asked. Throughout over like a 30-year period about why he wrote the book. And he's given a bunch of different answers, but they all kind of make sense. So, his early answer in the 50s would be, he was concerned about book burning in the United States, that it would occasionally come up. And We have to stop it. And then later on, he talked about, the effect of mass media and how that was, reducing people's interest in reading literature. And up to even in the 90s, I don't know if some people might not remember, the early 90s was basically, woke culture now was started in the early 90s with political correctness. And so he gave an interview in the 90s where he talked about, I'm concerned about this political correctness where people can't say what they think. They have to be politically correct. Some things they can't say. That's an aspect of the book. So I think the book reflects all of those things. And, even if he changed his, it reflect those concerns in society. So, yeah.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
Next, Foundation. This isn't really a dystopia, but it is talks about the end of a galactic empire. So it's kind of not necessarily a very happy thing. But anyway, so Foundation, originally published in 1951. So we're getting pretty early here, but it was actually written and first published in 1942. So back in those times, people weren't really publishing in the 40s. They weren't really publishing science fiction novels. So what happened was there's a bunch of science fiction magazines, which are basically like Reader's Digest, right? With a small bit of, with short stories in them. So it was first published in Astounding Science Fiction in 1942. And Asimov pitched it to Joseph Campbell, I think who was the editor or whatever, and said, "Hey, I'll write these, 5 stories, and we'll put them, once a year, and put them in his thing. It'll be about this declining galactic empire." And he's like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead, do it." So they were first put out that way. So 1942, and then eventually in 51 put together an entire book, which is the book that we get. So why is this important? I mean, first of all, it's Asimov. He's one of the big 3, however you want to look at it. He's written so many, he's up to 500 different books. He wrote 200 science fiction books, plus a bunch of, maybe it's only 200, but a bunch of books about science and also science fiction. He's all over the place. He's not just a fiction writer. The book itself has 4 short stories, basically like chapters: the psychohistorians, the encyclopedists, the mayors, the traders, and the merchant princes. That's all in the first book. And then there's the second book, Foundation and Empire, and Second Foundation. So the general storyline is that there is this galactic federation, which is basically encompasses the entire galaxy. There's some uncountable quintillion number of worlds, but it's been declining for a long time. And the main protagonist of the novel, Harry Seldon, has developed something called psychohistory, which is a new field of history and psychology. And with it, he can use it to predict the future, how things are going to go, but not like on a certain person. He can't predict what you're going to do. But if you get enough people together and, a galactic amount of people, you can then predict what's going to happen roughly. Like the society is falling, is in decline. This is going to happen first, these groups will break off, and then these groups will break off, and then some will be reabsorbed, that kind of stuff, right? So you got to read the book. So each of the stories deals with a certain element of that breakdown. So the first is the psychohistorians, which is, talks about the setting up of this world. They basically go to the galactic emperor is kind of mad that these guys have been going around saying that the empire is going to fall and we should be worried about it. I'm going to get rid of them. So they're able to sort of trick him and say, "Hey, put us on this planet way far away at the edge of the galaxy. We won't bother you anymore. And in order to stop the galactic civilization from falling, we're going to collect all the information about how all the information so that when there's a dark age, we'll be able to quickly recover from it, right? So that leads to the second phase, the encyclopedists, who are all these people on this planet. They're, oh, we must preserve the knowledge, write this giant encyclopedia. Of course, that that's all a trick. Harry Seldon didn't care about that. He knows that's not going to save it. He's actually starting a new nucleus for another galactic empire that's going to expand and will sort of counteract this fall. So that's sort of basics about it. Do you want to add to that, Cam? I don't want to go in too much into it, but that's sort of the basis of the story. There's much more.
Sorry, I can't. I haven't read this.
You haven't read Foundation? Oh, okay. This is the other one you haven't read. All right. Yeah, this is it's a great book. You have to read it. It's Asimov. He's one of the big three. This is the kind of the first book about a galactic empire, but it's not like, galactic empire, we're going out and kicking butt, and, like some sort of Buck Rogers type thing. It's from this empire is already falling, and how we're gonna remember he doesn't prevent the fall, but what we're trying to do is they're trying to lessen the dark age from 30,000 years to only 1,000 years. That's actually the plan. And so the book takes place between supposedly within that 1,000-year period. And there's a bunch of other books after the Foundation series, and it's a good story. It's a good read. It's turned into I haven't seen the TV show. There's a TV show on is it Apple or Prime? I don't remember. I'm not sure how good that is, and I don't think it adheres too closely to the TV show. I'm not sure. Okay, what does DP say? I've not read the book series either, but I did try to watch the TV show, which is a bit odd. Yeah, I'm not sure it's closely. Asimov said about it's on Apple. Okay, Asimov said about his books. Problem with let's say you tried to adapt these books, it'd be pretty hard because most of the books take place with two people sitting at a table. Like they go like the traders in the story of the traders, this guy goes out and trades, but like as an agent of the government comes by and says, "Oh, so I see you went out to trade. Tell me what happened." And they're sitting at a table. He goes, "Okay, this is what happened," and he tells a story. So it's kind of, it's kind of weird. It's be hard to. His writing style would be difficult to adapt. Not saying it couldn't be done, but it could be. But yeah. So it's this is why it's one of the earliest science fiction novels. It takes on a galactic scale of a galactic empire. No one had done this kind of thing before.
This is very early, as you say.
Yeah, it's 1942, 41. He pitched it and started writing it. It's a bit of a twist, fallen. It's not something that you would think of. And this whole idea, he invents his own, science, psychohistorians. Oh, they're a cross between psychologists and historians, and they're going to predict. They can't predict an individual's, but they're going to predict this giant because we have enough people. We get enough people together, a whole galaxy can predict what's going to happen with percentage variation. There's a lot more into it as that. There's there's the various, each of the stories in the book and in the second and third book as well. Each of them have some sort of problem that needs to be taken care of. Harry Seldon has predicted it. So what happens in the everyone predicts, they know something's going to happen, right? Like, Harry Seldon is going to talk to us because he's dead, right? But he's left these holographic messages. So he comes out and he'll say, "Oh, the problem is by now you've had a problem like this, and and he outlines the problem and talks about how to, this is kind of what you need to do roughly to solve it." And then, but there's a twist later on. He comes out and he talks about this problem, and it's not the problem that they're having, and everybody goes crazy. They're like, "Oh my God, we can't," because they start to rely on him. Oh, he's going to predict the future. Oh no, it's wrong. That's in one of the other books. But yeah, great book, great books, great series. You should read them. Yeah. Okay. Shall we move on?
Sure.
let's move on. We're getting near the end here. Okay, so second, Brave New World. Isn't that the name of the? Is that the name of the new Marvel movie? They're going to call it Brave New World
I think it is.
instead of New World Order. And that's you shouldn't call anything Brave New World if you've read Brave New World. Okay, so another dystopian novel.
It is called New World Order, isn't it?
New World Order.
Let me look it up.
It used to be called that. I thought they changed it. Anyway, so this one, 1932, written by Aldous Huxley, and it's got to be on the just because his name is pretty cool.
No, you're right. It is Brave New World.
Yeah, don't call your.
Yes,
they thought New World Order was bad. Brave New World's not a good name either. Yeah. So English author Aldous Huxley should be on the list just because he's got a cool name. Written in 31, published in 32. Quick plot. It's set in a futuristic world state where citizens are environmentally engineered into an intelligence-based social hierarchy. It anticipates... What's that?
Caste system.
Yeah, caste system. It anticipates huge scientific advancements in reproductive technology, sleep learning, psychological manipulation, classical conditioning. It is... there's some interesting... okay, so why is this important? It got a whole bunch of awards. It's a lot of these novels are ranked in, the 100 best novels of the 20th century. This is number 5 on the list. Same with, 1984. These kind of books are all high up on the list of, books that should be read, best books written. So the story revolves around a Bernard Max, who is he's a high level alpha. Everybody is divided into a caste system, right? Alpha, beta, and then you've got sort of the gammas and the epsilons and the foxtrots are all I don't want to say, I think they're mentally deficient. They're purposefully grown. So no one in this society is born. They're all grown in this, artificial wombs. They don't have any families. They grow in this society. This society is completely hedonistic.
Perverse.
Yeah, they just there's no birth control. They use abortion as birth control. That's one of the things. They're doing that. So and they use soma all the time to keep themselves drugged and happy. The story revolves around Bernard Marx. He's a psychologist. He's high. He's a member of the highest caste, but he's kind of short. So he's a bit of has an inferiority complex. But because of his specialism, the specialist area that he works, he starts to understand and disapprove of his society's methods of keeping its citizens peaceful, which, as I mentioned, Soma before. He's vocal and arrogant about his criticism, and his boss talks about exiling him to Iceland. He takes Leanna. I always say her name wrong. He takes a holiday with Lena, and they go to this savage reservation in New Mexico, which is basically a group of they're supposed to be like Puebloan peoples of Hoppe and Zuni descent, but basically American Indians who have not advanced. They're kept in the same tribal state. Or I should go back. So the world state is set. It's about set in 2540 of our calendar, but it's 632 AF, which is after Ford. So Huxley uses Henry Ford as he's kind of their, not their god, but instead of saying he's kind of who they model themselves on, and he uses the whole assembly line thing as sort of see his vision for the future as to where people are when they're kind of assembled and put together in these artificial wombs, that kind of stuff. So he goes off. The two of them go to this savage reservation. This is where they find a woman named Linda. She went on a trip 20 years ago to this reservation. She was pregnant at the time, didn't know it. And while she was there, she got lost. She got stuck with this tribe, and she had a baby. And she's refused to go back because she was so embarrassed because she actually had a baby, right? So the story revolves around the character's name is John. They're not really welcome in the tribe because they're different. So and Linda wants to come back now, and incidentally, Bernard's boss is the guy who got Linda pregnant. So, which is a huge embarrassment. So he has, he doesn't want to go to Iceland, so he has incentive to bring her and John back. And there's a scene where John meets the guy and calls him father, which causes a roar of laughter. And he's so humiliated he has to resign in shame. Yeah. So that's the rough part of the book. The rest of the story revolves around Bernard becomes custodian of the savage John, who is treated as a celebrity, and people are fawning all over him, and he has to. The story is really about him trying to relate to this society because it's completely different than what he's used to, and they're so free. Their freely wheeling attitudes towards sex is really disturbing to him, and I don't want to go on any more than that because I don't want to ruin the story for you. But it doesn't end well. Have you read this one? You've read this one, right, Cam?
Yeah, painfully. So actually, I listened to it on audiobook for one of our other things. I had to go through it very quickly.
Painfully so. Why do you say that?
It is not good by today's standards. Let me put it that way.
I like it.
Well, you're a snob, and I'm not. It's very. It plods on. It's like the beginning. I mean, it goes through it trying to establish its setting and everything, and then it does, and then keeps on going on and on and on about it for. I have no idea how many pages because again, audiobook. But in the audiobook, it was plotting. So imagine reading this, and it's just and the plot is kind of just haphazard. I mean, it hits these points, but it's none of it makes a lot of sense to me. The thing about we're just going to go over here with these these people that are out of our society where there's this clear example of things, and it's like, but they it's like no one really bothers them. They just kind of do that, and
it's like going to a zoo.
I guess, but it just didn't work for me. It seems very it doesn't come together well for me. Again, maybe at the time it's like, oh, this is this kind of shocking story they're telling, and it got through on that basis then.
Yeah.
But today it feels extremely dated and clunky and sloppy.
Really?
Yeah. I am not a fan of it at all.
It's a relatively I remember. I'm just looking at the page here. It says it's 311 pages, but I remember it being fairly short novel, compared to the other ones. But originally Huxley wrote it. He was there was a lot of at the time, he was inspired to do a parody of H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells was writing these novels, and they were all utopian style novels. And so he was like, I'm going to do a parody of that stuff because, I want to be I'm kind of a negative guy. So that's why he wrote this. And he actually called it a negative utopia. I mean, at the time, I don't think anyone had invented the word dystopia. So he goes, I'm going to write this book. It's going to be a parody of what H.G. Wells and his utopia. And I'll call it, I guess it's a negative utopia story. I mean, they didn't even really have dystopia yet.
Yeah. Well, and I will grant that, again, for its time, I can't judge it. You know what I'm saying, and I'm sure it did have these mm, interesting features. You know,
They
for
have
that matter.
they treat Henry Ford like it's like a Christianity type of thing, right?
Right.
They wear a T, which is like the cross with the little top off T for the Model T Ford.
Yeah.
Like there's all these kind of little.
See,
But
that just seems cringe at this point, where you look at it and it's kind of like that's just so. I mean, it's again, you could see at the time it's like, oh, this is kind of
well, I don't. I mean, it's just.
avant-garde or something, but by today's stand, it just seems clumsy.
Oh, you think so? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
I just think it's interesting that like these. I mean, who knows what people would think 600 years in the future from Henry Ford. They say instead of saying they instead of saying oh God, they'll say like oh Ford or something like that, right? That's all just little things about the story. The story is I particularly, it's not a positive ending, but I think it's an appropriate ending with what happens to the characters. Like Linda, for example, comes back and she simply drugs herself and lives in a drunken stupor till she dies. It's a
Yeah,
little
she
more.
learns absolutely nothing,
She
right?
learns, but that's what. Yeah, of course, she learns absolutely nothing because she is still she's a victim of her culture and she can't get over her culture. Like even though she's lived 20 years with you know, um, these tribal people, and of course, she's very promiscuous and they're not, and
Well,
so
okay, but
like there's a
explain her?
conflict in that area, right? Where she she feels sex is, oh yeah, have sex with anybody, it doesn't matter, but these the other women in this tribe are upset because their husbands are, oh well, I have free sex.
Okay, answer me these questions.
Okay,
Why do they tolerate her being there?
yeah,
And
because
so go ahead, go ahead.
I think it's because the the men kind of protect her because she's free sex for them. No, you can't. So the women can't go out and just like kill her, because but they don't. But they won't, like, they won't. They're not. It's the difference between the girl that you date and the girl that you bring home and meet your family and marry, right?
Okay, I
So
guess,
she's the girl that you don't bring to your.
but it's like their society is. You see what I'm saying? It's like, oh yeah, we maintain these very distinct lines in our society where we think this and they think this, and no one learns anything from the other. And then
Well,
her son, it's like, well, he's clearly not adopted her ways of thinking, and
because yeah,
her
because
seeing
he's
him experience that and why he's thinking differently and everything doesn't occur to her at all. It's just like, nope, just she is just okay. Now, I guess if the point is, nope, you could break people and make them that pathetic and stupid, and they'll never get better. I guess
yeah.
if that's your message, sure, but yeah,
Well,
I don't
okay,
know.
so first of all, the tribal people, they're living in a tribe. Like they're literally sort of scratching the dirt. These are kind of like, this is like, go into South America and find these tribes that have never seen, another person before. Like that's how they are living. And they're just being, it's basically a zoo for these, the world state people. And, they're come of highly technical, advanced society. They don't, they look down on these. They're like, it's like going to a zoo. I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, they don't treat like it's, let's go to the zoo. Okay, look at these people scratching in the dirt, all dirty and disease ridden, and look, some of them are even old. Look at them; they've got gray hair, and wow, can you imagine we ever lived like that? Holy jeez, no way. Okay, let's go home. Like that's the kind of the way they're treated, and I mean, I thought the character of John, the way that he's, he kind of got a foot. He's kind of got a foot in both worlds because he lives in the world where he is, but his mother is, she's a whore basically in that society. So nobody treats him well, but it's still his mother, so he kind of defends her, and there's no one else to defend her. He has to, like
Yeah.
he feels that way. He learns how to read, but she only has one book of Shakespeare, so that's all he knows how to read. He quotes from various Shakespearean works, and no one else knows how to read. So he comes back, to the society, and remember, he's heard from his mother his whole life how great this society is, right? Oh, it's great. He finally goes back and he's like, wow, things are not as great. This is like completely
Well,
shallow and empty.
that's another thing. It's like it's as if there's this lack of contact. The way that they've behaved in the story, as if there's some separation between these things, but there isn't. It's just like, oh yeah, we kind of go there and look at these primitives, like you say, in a zoo, and it's like, but the zoo animal, John, doesn't be like, hey, can I go back there because it's really great? My mom told me so. I really want to get back there. It's like none of it makes sense to me at all. It's just like these contrivances that are never really explained. Uh,
Mm.
you see what I'm saying? It just doesn't.
I
It
didn't
just
I didn't
doesn't.
feel that way, but I
Maybe your snobbishness got in the
yeah,
way of
maybe
your
I
good
didn't.
sense.
I mean, it was just these the people aren't going to listen to hey, can I come back? No, you can't. I watched there was a TV show. It was only one. I thought it was going not bad, but there was only one season of it, and it's kind of like why watch it if it's only going to go one season? And they made some changes to it where the the tribal groups were they were more aware of what was going on. They were just in a lower level of technology. They were more like American 20th century technology, but they knew and they kind of wanted to escape, or they would like to get something from the world government, but they were prevented to with force fields and I don't know, identity chips you couldn't go through. You'd get shot if you did and stuff. They made some changes to it, but it's kind of hard to watch because I mean it sets up the society fairly well, but I'm disappointed that you didn't go into other seasons so that you could get the story done. So I can't recommend watching the show because, like I said, it kind of ends abruptly, and we don't get to see what else happens. But it's a good idea of what kind of goes on roughly. But yeah, and what's his name from Star Wars? The new Han Solo is John, plays John in it. But the story ends negatively, like all these dystopians do.
All right, it's getting long. Let's go.
All right, let's move on to the last one. Okay, the last book that you have to read, of course, is Starship Troopers.
Absolutely.
And it's it's top of the list because So Robert Heinlein, written in 1959. First published in 1959. It is rough background. It's set about 700 years in the future. There's a Terran Federation, which is kind of a militaristic, based on the military setup. So the thing with I guess I should do the plot first. All right. So the story centers around a young kid, 18 or so, Johnny Rico, who joins the federal service in order to serve to fight the bugs. There's right before he's finishing high school. There's some conflicts going on, and that he joins the federal service, and during his basic training, it goes to an all-out war. And it's the story of it's kind of a coming of age story of him through the war, and but that is sort of not the key aspect. There's that aspect going on, but that's the aspect of the story, and it's not what makes the story one of the 6 science fiction novels you have to read. It's the fact that it's kind of a political. It's kind of a political philosophy for Heinlein that he puts forward through the use of the high school, Mr. Dubois giving talks in high school and through various characters. It's a discussion of militarism, suffrage, civic virtue, juvenile delinquency, and war. All of that thrown into it. The whole political philosophy of the book has to do with primarily nothing given is valued, and that's the story of the whole society. So within this society, philosophically, what they talk about is that they talk about the 20th century and how it didn't work, because if you give people rights, if you just give them rights and they don't have to earn them, they don't have to do anything in order to get them, then they won't value them. And you can look at our society now and for the past 50, 75 years, and wonder about how that's working. So that was Heinlein's idea. His idea was that everyone has rights even if you don't serve in the military, but you had to serve in the federated service in order to and do a term, which was 2 years or longer if there was a war. And if you serve successfully, then you become a full citizen. You get voting rights. So everyone has, rights. You can't go and just kill people and stuff like that. But only the people who have served in the military get full rights and are able to vote and able to hold high political office. So that's a very interesting idea. And one of the things about the Terran service is that they cannot refuse service. You could be missing an eye and an arm, and you could be as dumb as a post, but they have to find you a job somewhere. And if you serve successfully at whatever that job is for 2 years, then you're good to go. It doesn't matter because they decide where you go.
Yeah,
So,
just quickly on that point.
Yeah,
so it's an interesting thing. It's like we're born with certain rights, in the United States and many Western cultures, right? This one, it kind of shifts it to you all have the opportunity for these rights, meaning no one can get in the way of that. That's also something with it's like your parents. Nobody can stop you from attempting to gain citizenship.
Yeah,
right. That's the line where your rights is your ability to try and gain those rights.
Yes, and as a non-citizen, you still have rights, right? You still have the right to, you can't be cheated. You have all the normal rights that we would normally have, except for the voting rights and the ability to serve. It says high political office. I'm not sure where that line is drawn. I don't think it's set up in the book. But yeah, so I remember reading this as a kid and as a teenager and thinking about it, and one of the problems in Western society is you have, half of the people don't pay taxes, yet they can vote. And so, of course, they're going to vote for people who will tell them, hey, I'll give you more free stuff. And they're not paying for it. So why would they care? Right. So that is a big, hole in democracy.
Well, Heinlein
addresses that.
Yeah. The fundamental principle that this is responsibility and rights, and the two things go together.
Yes. So this book was primarily he wrote it. Heinlein was concerned about communism, didn't like communists, and he wrote it as a critical to be critical of 1950s. This will be interesting for you, Ken. Very critical of 1950s United American society. He felt that it kids were growing up and they lacked discipline, and and 1950s United States was in moral decline.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I wonder what he'd say if he was reincarnated now and he looked around. What he would say to that?
Yeah, that's interesting, because when I read this in the 90s, and I remember reading that and being like, well, man, this is really hitting on target. It's like, well, if
I read it in the 80s and I was like,
if young me would have
so that's a big aspect of the book. Now, other aspects of this book is that it is one of the things that is always referred to when you talk about the role of the military in society. This book kind of set that out, and people still look back at this book and say, what is the role of the military in a democratic society? And look at the book is very militaristic, and it's been criticized for that. But let's just I'm of the belief, people would say, Heinlein was a fascist and all this stuff. He wrote a book. And if he wrote a book and he, seemed to be pro-fascist, it's just a book, right? You can look at it and he's making a comment on something. Doesn't mean he necessarily agrees with it.
That's that's a simpleton's response.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
So I'm trying to, yeah, I'm saying don't look at it that way. But the role of the military in society is a big aspect of this. This is kind of the first book of political science fiction where it's, we talked about this book as being part of, military science fiction, which I see military science fiction as it's basically, war fiction with a future background. And this does have aspects of that because it's in the future and there's starships and they're going around in powered armor and stuff. But it's not. It's really about the political philosophy. It's the first real book of political science fiction.
well, I'll also point out that it isn't strictly a fascist system that he's talking about. It is
No.
it is. I'm not even sure it's authoritarian.
Well, it's
It's
democracy.
hierarchical.
It's democracy, but just with voting rights restricted to a certain class of people who have served in the military. And,
Who earned it.
to be honest, I mean, most of the time, except for the last 150 years, voting rights have been, not everybody didn't get a chance to vote. You had to be a landowner. There was some reason why you had, you had to have something before you could just vote. It wasn't just given to everybody. But
yeah,
anyway.
not universal suffrage.
Yeah, not universal suffrage. So universal suffrage is fairly new.
But
so
and that's the point where where I talked about before is it has its universal opportunity for suffrage.
yes.
Yeah.
And universal rights with the exception of voting
Right.
rights.
Yeah, it is a relatively liberal, meaning classical liberal society.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of, critics call it militaristic and him fascist. I don't think so. I think it's, it's very, I mean, I've seen other different voting systems where like a system where, you have to vote, people get up to 7, you can get up to 7 votes. Everybody gets 1 vote, but if you do, you serve in the military, you get another vote. If you do this, or this, you get another vote. You can get a vote by doing this, and you can get up to 7 different votes. So, but anyway, as I said, the military science fiction is secondary. It's mainly the ideology and this militarism and this idea of nothing given is valued is set up in the book. That's the key. And those things are the reason that this book is so important is because those things are still discussed. I mean, those are the least important aspect of this book is the power armor. I mean, this is your first instance of power armor. It's in numerous books afterwards. Steckley's book Armor, he said that, specifically that Starship Troopers was the made him want to write his book. And the reason he wrote his book is because, there wasn't enough combat in Starship Troopers, so he wanted to put more in there. The Forever War, Joe Haldeman is affected by this. Iron Man, all your big, movie franchises like I said, like Iron Man. What else? Aliens. All of these, you can just name them off. All of these things have aspects of it, from his power armor. And that power armor aspect, I think, is the least important thing that this book
but you know what?
brought out.
It's possibly a perfect example of what is sci-fi, or is it sci-fi, right? Because it has that element. It does affect the story and everything, but it really is just this background in which the story is built on, these other elements that make it sci-fi. So it's absolutely fantastic from that.
What else? Halo, District 9, Elysium, Edge of Tomorrow, Mobile Suit Gundam, any of these powered exoskeletons, that's an aspect of it. And it's not like he just said, hey, we have this suit of armor on. Like he gets into detailed discussion of the armor and about it. So that's what kind of puts it ahead of anything else. And I said, like, again, that's the least important aspect. I think it's the political aspects, those aspects of the book. I mean, even right now, the U.S. military is experimenting and trying to build some sort of power armor. And they've been doing it for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. Cam, I don't know if you know anything about that. Exosuits or exoskeleton type.
Yeah, I hear something about it every once in a while.
Yeah, I follow a little bit of that stuff, and you see a little bit every once in a while. But yeah, they've been working on it for 15 years at least, maybe more. So, and this is a good example of how, science fiction inspires science. Anyway, yeah. So, anything else you want to mention about?
Well, I would just say if it would probably be the top, top 3, if not the very top. If someone said, "Hey, I want to experience science fiction," and it's like, read this book, classic science fiction, like we talk about, in that.
The only problem with that is that it's very political. So I would be tempted to, I would of course recommend this book, but if someone is not, like, you have to understand that there's a lot of political aspects to it, and you get a lot of Heinlein's libertarianism in this, and Moon is a harsh mistress. But as long as if someone comes to me and say, I hate politics, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe I wouldn't recommend this.
Well,
but,
you see, it's one of those things where, especially being as old as it is, it really has very little to do directly with politics of today. It's, again, this political theme versus a political statement.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not talking about today's politics. I'm just saying that there are people who just like, I don't like any type of politics in any of my books. I don't like Star Wars, the prequel technology, because they talk about trade federation. I mean, there are people like that. I mean, I think it's,
well, I mean, okay,
we agree that we like that stuff, but
then unless you are in a setting that is anarchy, that's anarchy or extremely primitive, it's hard. It would be hard to avoid this kind of politics, meaning just society, and how society runs. As Weatherman says, any culture has some version of politics, which is different from being political. It's these are not the same thing. Because you have the other side, it's like everything is political. It's like, no, that's not what that means. It's
and the only reason I bring this up is because, like, you might think that Starship Troopers by its name is a military science fiction, right? So something, by what's his name? I mentioned him on the show before, but that's pure, like, it's basically war fiction, battles and that kind of stuff. No politics, just we're fighting. And it's just set in the future, so you got laser weapons and stuff, right? If you think that Starship Troopers is that, it's not. It's actually primarily about politics. So that's why that would be the only thing that would, I wouldn't recommend something. If someone came to me, I love these guys who do military fiction and military science fiction stuff, I say, well, Starship Troopers has got a little of that in, but it's not really about that. And I might suggest it to them to try to.
Well, see,
try to trick them a little, but
I guess, but I think it has all of these elements that just come together so perfectly almost,
and that's why it's the top of the list. You got to read, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like this 1984. I mean, all the books on the list are very important, I think. Let's talk a little bit about
which of these books wouldn't be that type of political.
What wouldn't be political?
Yeah, of the ones on your list here, which of these would be
the least political?
Yeah.
Foundation and Rendezvous with Rama.
Rendezvous with Rama, I guess, would probably.
They're more pure science, like political aspects are not important to it. The rest of them are, these dystopians are in their nature political because they comment on society and, oh, look, we're going this direction. This is where it could lead, and it would be really bad. What would happen if we were, became this kind of society? What could it lead to? So, yeah. Let's talk really before we end. We're almost done. Before we end, let's just talk really quick about the movie, Starship Troopers.
Let's talk about it really quickly.
I don't mind the movie, but it's not the book. it's Verhoeven, the director, he decided he wanted to do a movie about fascism. They wanted to do a movie about German youth fascists, and no one wanted to pay for that movie. So he said, "Hey, I'll do Starship Troopers." And he turned the movie, like, the book is not about fascism, but he made in the movie the society is much more fascistic, I guess is the word. So
No,
watch the movie and enjoy the
he made
movie
it
for what it
clown-like.
is. What? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
He made it clown-like.
Yeah,
In order to, I mean, was he the one that was like, "Oh no, I didn't read the book," or he didn't, whatever?
I don't know about that.
Because I mean, it
Didn't
is
seem
one of
like
the
you read the
worst
book.
adaptations of a work that I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, but it's really hard to do a movie that has all this politics in it, right? So but I don't think he wanted to do that movie. He wanted to do, he wanted to do this movie about, you know,
Yeah. See,
about fascism, and so he just glommed onto this.
the problem with that is that it just burns the ability to put out a good movie, right? It's because someone else is going to be like, "Oh, well, we'll put out the good version of it," that did try to stick to it. It just obliterates it from the scene, at least for a period of time.
Yeah. So
Now, go ahead.
So Weatherman has the right, like, the movie is entertaining, but it has only the skin suit of the book. That is
Yeah,
perfectly
absolutely.
placed because it's got the stuff, but it's not. It's got the characters, it's got the names, and some of the aspects are similar, but it's it's not the book. It's not it takes out all the political aspects of the book, which is really what the book is about. Yeah, Verhoeven is high in his own farts.
Yeah.
This and
Now,
RoboCop. I like RoboCop, but this is kind of like the RoboCop version of Starship Troopers, maybe.
I will give you the alternative, which we've discussed before again because we've talked about Starship Troopers. And
Sorry, what? I can't hear you.
I said I will give you a better alternative, and that is the animated Starship Troopers. It's called Roughneck Chronicles, or Starship Trooper Chronicles Roughnecks, or something. Anyway, Roughnecks, if you look up animation, is a much better representation of the world, but it is kind of a kid's animation. So
Yes.
it doesn't have those hard edge political kinds of things. But it still has some commentary about humanity and society, and things like loyalty and dedication, things like that. So it does a very good job. It has a lot of the aesthetics of the movie, but it's really between the movie and the book, closer to the book, I'd say. um, and well worth watching. It is very it's very early computer based animation, so it looks pretty rough, but it's
Yeah.
worth it for the story.
That turned me off a little bit when I was trying to watch it.
Yeah.
August 1999 they came out. There's also four sequels that have been released to Starship Troopers. They were all released straight to DVD films. What does that tell you?
Yeah.
All four of them. Starship Troopers 2, Hero of the Federation, 3, Marauder, Starship Troopers Invasion, and Starship Troopers Traders of Mars. Straight to DVD. So that can be, pretty questionable. But read the book. It gives you the true version of what the story is about. I got to go back and try to find the animated ones and watch them.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I do have it on DVD. You can get it, but again, I think it's, as I recall, it's on 4:3 aspect ratio even. So it was before.
Yeah, I don't know if you can find it anywhere streaming. I think you have to buy I haven't been able to find it, but I haven't looked super hard. All right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So give that a try. So I let's just sum up these 6 books. They are all, have some aspect of science fiction that they are sort of first in, they won awards in, or they're the novel that, we consciously or subconsciously are referring to all the time whenever we're talking about things like 1984, whenever you hear people say, that's a thought crime, or 2 + 2 = 5. Yeah, that's from that novel. That's where you get that. So if you haven't read any of these novels, I highly recommend you read these to become a science fiction snob. I am also working on increasing that list. So this is like snob level, level 1. If you got to read these books, then I'm gonna, work on putting out a little bit more. You want to advance up to snob master. You need to expand on these a little bit. I was thinking of doing out a test, right? If the viewers want to, hey, am I snobby enough? I could ask them questions. What do you think, Cam? Is that a good put out a form you got to fill out, a questionnaire you got to fill out? You think that'd be a good idea?
No.
No.
Never give homework. Never put demands on your audience.
Well, you don't have to demand, but you could get a little check mark or something saying that you're a snob. Like what is the 27th word on page 256 of Brave New World? That kind of thing. Good questions like that. Prove that you're a knowledgeable snob, right? No, Cam doesn't think so.
Yeah, go for it. Whatever you want.
All right. Well, that's the show, folks. We hope you enjoyed it. We don't have a topic for next week yet. We've got to work on that. But it won't be a movie, so you don't have to watch. We'll give you a heads up for that. We've got the Babylon 5 on Wednesday. What's the one we're doing? Do you remember? What's the next? Remember, Cam? Help me out here.
Say it again.
What's the next episode we're doing?
Oh,
episode 5.
Parliament of Dreams, I think.
Parliament of Dreams. That's right. Yeah, that's it. So that's what we're doing on Wednesday. Don't forget, like or subscribe if you can. We appreciate that. It helps us move up. We're trying to get, by July, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. We're at 539, I think. Something like that. So we're slowly creeping up. What else? Oh, I'm trying to get my Rumble channel sorted out. So I need 20 subscribers to change the name. I don't want to put a whole string of random characters. Hey, come into my random string of character. I want to change it to something more useful. So I've got 8 subscribers. If we can get 20 subscribers, I'm allowed to change the name. So if you've got a Rumble account, you can go and just subscribe to the channel. That would be appreciated. And you can desubscribe after we get to 20 if you really don't want to subscribe. That's fine. Whatever you want. But I'd appreciate it to be able to get to 20. Okay, so that's it. Do we anything else we got to do, Cam? Do you have any points you got to make?
No, I think kind of covered it.
Are you sure we didn't forget anything?
Positive.
I think we might have forgotten something. Death's Angel Shadow's not here to remind us. We got to have the joke. We can't forget the jokes. All right, are you ready?
Okay,
I got 2. Only one's real a joke. The other one's kind of a.
No, I'll be the judge of that.
All right. Okay. So, what's a dystopian government's favorite game?
Well, I don't know. What's a dystopian government's favorite game?
Controlopoly. Get it? It's like Monopoly, but control, because they like to control things. Controlopoly.
Yeah.
You don't get it?
I was going to say Monopoly, but okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, Controlopoly. Okay, so this is just it's not a question and answer one here. Maybe you might like this one better. A photon checks into a hotel. The front desk asks if he needs any help with his luggage. He replies, "No, I'm traveling light."
That's a good one.
Pretty good, eh? That was not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, I get good ones eventually sometimes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll give you credit for that.
All right. That's it for the show, everyone. Thanks for coming by. Appreciate you. Like and subscribe. And we will talk to you. See you next week or maybe on Wednesday, hopefully.
Yep. Thanks everyone
for coming. Good night, everybody.